Holidays are a great time of joy and connection, but let's be honest, they can really be stressful and overwhelming, and they can push our boundaries to the limits. So I want you to kind of be thinking while I'm talking, where is a boundary or where is something in your life that comes up maybe year after year, especially during the holidays, that you're like, oh, I could really set a good boundary during this time. And I could really make this so much better for me, make this holiday season better and something that would be great. So as we're talking, I really want you to kind of be thinking about that because I think that's really important. And so I just want to share with you really quickly my big boundary story, which actually when I did it, I didn't realize I was even setting a boundary. I will tell you, I was 19 years old and I was in college, and I have an older brother who's almost 10 years older than I am, and he's pretty much been an alcoholic my whole life. Like his whole childhood, he would drink, and that's really how I've known him. And so I spent a weekend with him when I was in college and thought I was having a good time, didn't know any better. I've been raised in the Midwest my whole life. Drinking is a big part of everybody's life out here. I very much lumped that all together, but that's kind of how it feels. And we got through the weekend, and it was like a Saturday night, and he decided he was going to go get more alcohol, and I hid his keys from him. And what ended up happening was he picked me up by my shirt and threw me up against a wall and said, "Give me my keys back. You don't get to control me." It was just this whole thing. And so I gave him his keys back. And thankfully, he did not go anywhere. He did end up passing out. And the next day, he didn't remember it. And that was my wake up call. I decided at that moment that I loved my brother dearly, that I could not save him, and that I would never put myself in that kind of a situation again. I don't know that I was ever in any real danger. I don't think he would have hurt me, but I decided I was never going to stay with him over the course of a weekend again. And that's when I set my boundary. I think that, I mean, I'm sure I set boundaries before that, but I think that was the real eye-opening boundary that made me go, oh, this is what I have to do. I have to protect myself. And so I tell you that, even though that's not a Christmas story, I tell you that because boundaries are about protecting you. Boundaries are not ever about controlling anyone else. They're always about you and making sure you're getting what you need. And so that was just such an eye opener for me, and just kind of what changed everything. It kind of made that shift that I was the one that had to protect myself. So I'm hoping that by the time we're done talking today, you will have a few tools and some confidence to be able to say yes to what matters most to you, and to also be able to say no without guilt, because that's a huge. So going back to the holiday theme, most of the time when we think of the holidays, we think of things like overcommitment, too many parties, too many events, too much tradition. There's just too much to juggle. We think, I know Kim touched on this too at the very beginning, we think about family dynamics. We might have difficult relatives or guilt-driven expectations. I know for me, she's kind of an adopted sister, but she tends to come in and bulldoze. She likes everything her way, and she's going to change everything. And I tend to get a little, you know, feeling a little overtaken by her. And so I tend to just not put up with that very well. There's also financial strain. There's pressures to overspend on gifts or activities. There's pressures to buy everyone a gift. And then, of course, there's emotional burnout, which is lack of personal self-care or even personal time Or as I like to call it, sometimes we turn into volcanoes and we just explode. And so there's lots, those are like the most common struggles, and that's what we're going to look at. And all of these challenges are real and valid, but the really good news is that you have the power to create a holiday season that reflects your values and priorities. And it really does start with boundaries. So, and Erin touched on this as well, but what do you want to feel and experience this holiday season? So, really getting clear and acknowledging what you want to feel and how you want it to look. So, it goes right along with the vision board. Like, you could do a mini vision board for your holiday season. What do you want it to look like? You could say, I want it to look like spending time with immediate family, and I don't want to have all the extra stuff. It could be a matter of, and this is actually something I did this year, I didn't decorate my whole house. I have a very small corner of my house decorated, my living room, and a little tree up, and that's all I have. Now, I don't have little kids, so I don't have to worry about that. Although I do have little great nieces and nephews that do sometimes come over. But I just decided I wasn't going to stress about putting everything up, because I went and helped my mom put her stuff up because she broke her arm. And so I spent the time I would have done for myself taking care of her. And that was my choice. But instead of stressing myself out to get it all done, I said, you know what? We got this section done. That's all we're doing. And you can also think about how I'm going to stay within a budget and then do it. One thing I like to always point out about boundaries is that boundaries should always be communicated with kindness. Boundaries, I said it just a minute ago, but boundaries are never meant to control people. And so you want your boundaries to be kind and gentle. They can be firm and still be kind. So, like if you have somebody that asks you to do something and you don't really want to do it, a way to do that is to just say, thank you for thinking of me. I've decided to keep my schedule light this year and focus on just family time. So I'm going to pass. But maybe we could do something after the first of the year. You get to decide those things. If it's like gift giving for limits, this year I'm simplifying the holidays and sticking to a budget. Let's set a price limit for gifts, or consider doing Secret Santa, where maybe you're not giving gifts to everyone, you're just picking and choosing. You're picking a name out. Excuse me. I am also getting over a sinus infection, and so I still have a little lingering fun going on there. But you don't have to. The other thing I want to really say around that is you don't have to over explain ever for anything. So if just simply saying no thank you is what you need to do, that's a complete and full sentence, and use that. You don't ever owe anyone an explanation. You get to decide. This is your life. If you ever have people in your life that are like, but I really want you to come, I really want you to do this, I really want you to be a part of this, those people have a selfish motive, and you don't have to do that. You can just simply say, I said no, I mean no. And you can walk away, especially if they don't let it go. Walk away, end the conversation, whatever you need to do. But you don't have to explain anything to anyone. But on that note, you should expect a little bit of pushback. So what happens when someone doesn't respect your boundary? I like to just prepare a really calm response ahead of time. So if I have somebody that's always pushing my boundaries, I will try to anticipate what they're going to come with next. And so a lot of times I'll just say, I understand this is different from what we've done in the past, but this is the decision that feels right for me. Or I hear you, but I've already made my plans and I can't change them. So looking at the bucket list, going back to Kim's bucket list, like where can you say, I've already, and I love the fact that Kim was saying schedule everything, because once it's scheduled, then you get to decide if you're going to change it or not. So that's where the boundary comes in. It's already scheduled. I don't want to change my schedule. So you don't have to. And I absolutely love that. Um, so we have 10 minutes left. Let's do a quick little visualization exercise. So I would just encourage you all to close your eyes, and I want you to picture your ideal holiday season. What does it look like? Who are you spending time with? How do you feel? Is there anything missing that you'd like to include? What's really going on? What are the words that you're saying? What are the facial expressions that you're seeing? I mean, I'm hoping that everybody's seeing like really happy, joyful times with loved ones, no, no discontentment, no fighting, that it's all just really beautiful. This vision that you have in your head right now, this is your guide. Is there anywhere in this that you can see something coming up where you may need to set a boundary to make this vision your reality? And if so, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, I would just encourage you to maybe jot that down so that you remember when we're all said and done what that is. So you can come back, you can open your eyes and wiggle your fingers and come back, but what is that boundary that you may need to set? When you set boundaries, you gain more than just peace of mind. You create space for what truly matters. You create space for more joy. You'll definitely feel more present and less overwhelmed. You create better relationships. Clear communication builds trust and respect. Have you ever had someone where they just expect you to assume and know what they're thinking and why they're doing something the way they're doing it? That's because they don't know how to set clear boundaries, and then they get frustrated at you for not respecting their boundaries. We don't want to do that to other people. It just makes it really hard. And then you also have aligned actions. Your holiday aligns with your values and your intentions. So another really good way to know if you need boundaries is to think about your values. What are your core values? And are people, and you especially, like you can set your own boundaries. I set boundaries for myself along with boundaries that affect friends and family. But are they all falling into alignment with your core values? If one of your values is that you're going to give yourself more self-care and you want more self-care during the holiday season, but you fill up every open time with big events and lots of people, you're breaking your own boundary and you're not living in alignment with what you want. So that's how you realize it. You go, oh, I'm not living up to my core values. So where do I set those boundaries? How do I do that? So your beliefs about the holidays shape how you approach them. If you believe you have to please everyone, you're going to overcommit and you're going to feel drained. But if you believe you deserve a joyful and peaceful holiday, boundaries will help you create it. So I would just encourage you to think about what boundaries you need to set and write them down. And if you need to practice scripts, like if you are someone who struggles to say things in that moment, practice what you will say to those people. I always encourage clients to stand in front of the mirror so they can see themselves eye to eye. That way they get to see reactions, they get to see their own facial expressions, and practice saying those scripts. I used to have a guy I worked with that thought he could just boss me around and he wasn't even remotely my boss. And I finally had to just stand up to him and say, I'm really sorry, but this isn't going to work. If you can't talk to me like a human being, because he was very rude, you don't need to be in my office ever. And I pretty much walked him right out my door. But I had to practice that because he would get me so upset that I would shake and I wouldn't be able to think of it in the moment. So I started doing those practices and different things. So we have a few minutes left. Would anybody like to share anything or ask any questions?
I
Go for it, Lisa.
so I did share in the chat, but from the exercise that you just had me do, I was envisioning the great parties, great friends, great family, people I love, all that. But one vision didn't come up, and that's actually a party that's happening this Saturday. And I am going because it's a dear couple, this friends, and he had just her husband passed in January. So this is a difficult party for her to have. But it's in my sense, it's difficult because a couple people will be there that I have decided to purge from my life as friends, and they will be there. So I made a decision because of your visualization to go to the party, see the people I love, interact with them, connect with them, and then when I'm done, leave.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yes.
my boundary.
Absolutely. I love that. I actually did that last night at an event. I did not go up to or linger in areas where people who tend to drain my energy, I call them
Mm-hmm.
vampires,
Mm-hmm.
where they would be. So yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you
Awesome.
for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, passion.
So I have a tricky one. It has nothing to do with family. It's friends. I moved to a new location 3 years ago and became a member of a group of getting to know other people. So we have gatherings every month or so, and I host different, we all take turns hosting. So I'm doing Christmas, like we have for the last 3 years. And the group has kind of started to kind of go in different directions, right? Like we know we're not going to be friends with everybody. The group was meant to make some friends, see who you connected with, but keep it on. So this year the challenge has been that a lot of people, I'm a I am kind of a like, just tell me if you don't want to be a part of the group anymore. But how do you say that without, like, do you know what I'm saying without saying it? Like I'm the host. I can't be like, get out of my house if you don't want to be here,
Right.
Like there is still some, courtesy and respect and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't want to exclude anyone because it's a group event.
Right. You could put out a really gentle invitation that if there's something that's coming up for you or like if you let them know, so information is the word, invitation and information are the two words that are coming into my head. So if you let them know everything that's going to go on to the best of your ability, like so you put out the information, say this is what the party's going to look like. If this doesn't feel like this is a right fit for you, there are never going to be any hard feelings. There are never going to be, this doesn't mean you can't come to the next one. It doesn't mean I'm going to be offended, just in making that really clear. And another thing I've done in the middle of like a party is just if somebody's upset and they're not, they're kind of being nasty, you can very nicely invite them to leave.
Yeah,
There's
we don't
nothing that
like
that makes them stay.
no one's ever nasty. No one's
Good.
ever nasty in the event. It's the outside conversation that happens, right? Like the little bit of
And
sometimes I feel like I'm back in high school. I'm like, are we really doing this at this age?
yes,
Like, why are we doing this? And I'm 50, they're older than me. Like it's not
yes,
younger than me. This is like old,
yes.
right? And so it's just the as tell what you said, yes, except that these parties are whoever can make it. There's not a
Okay,
if you can't make it, let me know why. It's just a RSVP, yes or no, if you're coming.
okay.
But I think what's happening now is it's like, okay, so a couple of people that have said no, they're not coming. I'm curious as to why And is it because they don't want to be a part of it anymore and they just can't say it? They're just going to say no to everything,
Right.
you know? Or they're
Which
saying
is
no to
fine.
some things and not others, depending on who's hosting. And, it's the
Yeah.
catty. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with this cattiness in my life right now. Like,
Yeah.
the
And
cattiness I deal with.
something you could try to adopt, because I know we're out of time, but something you could try to adopt is other people's opinions and what's being said outside is none of my business.
Yeah.
And that one I know is hard, but that might be the boundary you set as whatever they say about this party doesn't matter to me. It's none of my business and it's just going to be their thing. And let them own it because really you don't have to take responsibility for the way anybody else feels ever. So that might be the gentle reminder for you is just, hey, this gets to be theirs. I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, well, I will be saying lots of prayers for your party and that it goes really well and that everybody's just really wonderful to you through the whole thing.
No one's ever not wonderful.
Good.
It's all the knowing of what's going on. And
You're
there's
all,
more
and
to it,
you know,
which, yeah.
here's the other thing you can do really, really quick is if somebody comes back to you and says, oh, so and so said this, you can gently stop them and say, I don't really want to hear it. And I do that a lot. I go, you know what? I don't need to know what they said about.
And I usually come back with, if they'd like to say that, then they should say it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I stop them before they even say it. I'm like, just don't. And that'll change things too.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.